this is my fourth video in my channel. So when I was watching the last three videos that I published, where I was sitting in front of the camera and talking, I honestly felt it was very flat and boring, right? So this time I'm trying a different approach by standing and talking. I may be doing such funny experiments now and then to see if it makes a good difference. But rest assured, my content is not experimental. It is seasoned and backed by years of experience. So that's it. Let's move on to today's topic, which is building interview confidence. To put it in very simple terms, confidence is a major factor in determining the success of your interview. I have read this somewhere that when you meet a person for the first time, that person's mind will create an impression about you as quickly as in the first 30 seconds, and the remaining time in the conversation, that person's mind will try to justify that initial impression being made. So now you know how important confidence is in the context of an interview, right? I know very well that confidence is not something that we get by taking a pill. It is a state of mind, and what I am trying to do in this video is to get you into that state of mind by helping you clear some misconceptions around interviews, what an interview is and what it is not. Misconception number one: interview is a Q&A, or a question and answer session. We all think at some level that interview is a question and answer session, right? Even though times are changing and interviews are shifting towards a more sensible direction, it is not a Q&A session. If you are attending an interview, there should ideally be two purposes for this interview. One is for you to assess your fitment of skills to that specific job role and company. The second is for the interviewer to assess the same. Unfortunately, most of the interviews today turn out to be something that tests out how much you can memorize instead of how much you know and learned over your experiences. We are all forced to follow this path from the school days itself. We are asked to mug up or memorize a lot of steps and reproduce them on the auspicious occasions called examinations. And the one who reproduces that the most will become the rank holder or the most intellect person in the world. But have you ever wondered how much of use these have been in your real life? I'm 35 now and I work in the technology space. Honestly, when I think about it, let's take the simple example of the subject max. We started learning to count 1, 2, 3, then addition, subtraction, multiplication, then LCM, HCF, algebra, differentiation, integration, and so many other things. But at this point in my life, when I look back, after my school days, I used to apply only the basic principles of addition, subtraction, multiplication, average, and maybe percentage in my real life. And that too, I calculated using a calculator app on my phone. So, why did we learn so many kilograms of concepts during our school days? Just like that, we tend to think that interview is where an interviewer will grill you with a list of questions and you will be judged based on how many questions are you able to answer. Of course, we cannot help if the interviewer who is interviewing you still perceives this as a Q&A session. But as Gandhiji said, let us be the change that we want to see in the world, right? So go and face the interview with the mindset that it is just an opportunity to have a good discussion around whether you will be a good fit to the job role, whether you will enjoy working in that company or not. My sincere hope is interviews should eventually become an opportunity for the interviewer to assess the attitude of the candidate towards learning and adapting to the job role. And trust me, if that attitude is there, anything, underline this, anything can be learned. Moving on to misconception number two: interviewer knows everything and is there to beat you down. So, this is a huge limiting belief that holds us back from clearing the interview confidently. This is actually a result from our past conditioning of schooling, where we tend to think the interviewer as a Viva instructor who will be asking questions and we are supposed to give the right answer. And we may also be very anxious that the interviewer may reject us if we tell the wrong answer, right? Just imagine for a second from the perspective of that interviewer, right? That interviewer may be interviewing multiple candidates for the same job role, and then that will be taking quite a huge amount of time aside from his or her normal working hours. And if he or she goes on challenging everyone and rejecting each and every applicant, there's seriously something wrong with that person. So go with the mindset that as much as you want to crack an interview, the interviewer, the HR, and the whole company is there to support you to clear that interview. Filling you for that job role is not just your necessity, it is for the mutual benefit of both you as well as for the company. I have seen how HR people would struggle to fill in the job roles where people would get selected, accept the offer, and then they just back out telling that they got a better offer. So they are going through so many hurdles and they are equally interested to get you on board onto that job as much as you do. If you're finding it difficult to build this mindset, then I would suggest you to consider an alternative, sort of an out of the box approach called the Virender Sehwag approach. So, Sehwag once told the media that he used to imagine the bowler doesn't know how to bowl, and that used to give him the confidence to try hitting a boundary in every ball that he faced. Just like that, try to build a mindset that the interviewer who is going to interview is not the ultimate intellectual in the world. And this is true. They don't know everything. Your learnings and experiences are unique to you. Nobody knows that better than you. So have that in mind before attending an interview. Misconception number three: interviewer controls the interview. Big, big, big misconception. It is you who control the interview. So to analyze this, let's divide the whole interview process into three different parts. So there'll be the first part where interviewer usually asks you to give an intro. There'll be the second part where the actual discussion happens between you and the interviewer. And there is this final closure part of the interview. The first and the last parts are completely within your control. How do you take advantage of that? Have a well prepared script of like what you want to tell in this intro section, and this shouldn't be about where you were born or which school did you go or how many pets do you have. Instead, use this opportunity to tell a beautiful story that aligns closely with the job role that you are applying for. What do I mean by that? This is my personal experience. So I started my career as a software test engineer, but I wanted to move to product management. So when I got an interview for a product manager role, this is how I presented myself in the intro part. So I worked as a software test engineer because that was the first opportunity that came my way at the beginning of my career. During the tenure as a software test engineer, I learned how things can go wrong in a product. I want to move to a new career to learn how to build things right. So with my past experience as a software test engineer, I have this added advantage to ensure that things don't go wrong while building things right. So you see how much powerful you can make your intro message to. And when you set that stage, you will naturally feel confident during the rest of the interview process. And another thing that you might want to consider in your introduction part is if you are very confident and comfortable with a specific skill set, if you stress on that skill set or experience more and more during your intro message, it's highly likely that the interviewer would base the second part of the interview on that skill set. Now, coming to the last part. So, the last part of an interview is actually the closure, which would be the final impression that you leave the interviewer with. So, when I was attending interviews, I used to have this punchline at the end of the interview where I say that regardless of whether I get selected or not, I really appreciate you taking time for this interview and I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. So whether or not it impact the outcome of my interview, I used to feel very good that I brought that conversation to a very good closure. And more often than not, it used to help build a rapport with that interviewer and leave a good aftertaste for the interview. So, if you clear all these misconceptions, then I'm sure you'll be able to attend your interview much more confidently than you think. Finally, as a bonus pointer, just remember this golden principle to be committed to respect yourself and your interviewer during your interview process. What do I mean by that? Respecting yourself is all about not to look or sound desperate during your interview. Even if you don't have a job at hand, you must look and sound confident during the interview. And I'm not asking you to act confident. You should really be confident. You owe it to yourself. Have the trust in yourself that if not this job, I'll surely get another one. For anyone to have the confidence and belief in you, you should have that first for yourself. That also means that during an interview, if you don't know the answer for a question, just honestly tell that I don't know. But maybe with a little twist in the way you phrase it, like, I don't know, but I would love to learn if given an opportunity. So that is the attitude we are talking about. But that said, I also wanted to stress that your self confidence should not lead to arrogance and disrespect the interviewer. And that is why I said be committed to respecting yourself and the interviewer at the same time. So to summarize things quickly, interviews are not Q&A sessions. Interviewers are not your opponents or enemies. They are your friend who will support you to crack the interview. You are in control of the whole interview, not the interviewer. You can build a beautiful story that closely aligns with the job role, that throws a hook at the interviewer to take the interview to a direction that you want them to take. And finally, be committed to respecting yourself as well as the interviewer during the interview. So look and sound like a true professional who is very much confident, at the same time appreciative of the other person's knowledge, time, and effort. If you follow these principles, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't crack an interview. So all the best until you watch me in my next video.